All right, Mario, Eva, welcome. Like we were talking before, first podcast experience.
Yes.
Nothing to be afraid of. Listen, today I wanted to open the conversation on obviously a few things, but I think the one that's really important, and it's one that we see as a group, and hopefully there'll be home hardware dealers listening to this, and hopefully across Canada. We'll see how that goes. But and it's one that the audience, I think, will resonate as I explain it. Is, when we think of the Amazons and a Jeff Bezos, or we think of Steve Jobs and Apple, you think of these big companies, and I'm putting home hardware maybe on a big pedestal here.
You are, yeah.
Yeah. But we always think of one owner, one person, one general, one person that's leading the charge with a company. And, home hardware has been a Canadian brand for quite a long time now, 60 years. And I think a lot of people have this, misconception that home hardware is a one-owner company, that's a corporation, that's run by, and all the stores will be the same and all that. But you'll quickly find out through maybe a good or a bad experience. I'm saying all experiences in home hardware are good.
We're hoping.
You'll quickly find out that maybe the guy that just served you in the paint section might actually be the owner of that exact store. And I think it's a beautiful part of home hardware that is celebrated, when we go to the market and stuff like that. Why like that? Why do you think home hardware is designed that way? Is there an easy answer to that question?
It's I don't know if there's an easy answer. I guess the answer, if you don't mind.
No, you go right ahead.
The answer would start with the foundation of home hardware in 1964 was the reason why it was founded is Walter J. Hackborn, the founder, realized that at that time the big American companies, which were the Woolcos, Woolworths, Kmarts of the world, were coming into Ontario and into Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw that there was a risk for the independent hardware dealers. So he basically developed the strategy, developed the plan, and went around and convinced, how many were the founding members? About 100 hardware stores, I'm going to say. I could be off by a few, but to convince that they should work together in order to be able to compete against the larger model American companies coming into Canada. So that's truly how home hardware was founded. And that's how the independent dealer-owned model was developed.
Okay.
And there's other models like that. There was some in the States, there was some in Canada, but we are truly, in our industry, the only one that remained with that model. We never changed the basic foundation of the company, where every dealer is 100% owner of their store.
Okay.
And being part of the home hardware family, then you're also a shareholder of the corporation.
Right.
So I think that's what we've seen, the development across Canada over 60 years now. With just, there's been a few amalgamations of companies that we've purchased over the years.
Yeah.
But mostly it's been organic growth, one dealer at a time, convincing them, because the true only reason we exist is for our dealer success.
Right.
There's no other outside shareholders.
Yeah.
So if you're a shareholder of home hardware, it's because you own a store.
Or a dealer.
And as you said in your intro, a lot of time you're actually working in the store. It could be, the paint department, washing the floors, depending. We have some very small stores, we have some very big stores, but it all comes with the package.
Yeah. Would you say that it is a better approach to a corporation, or is it just it's unique in its own, because I'm looking from I've been fortunate enough to see this company grow, but this one has been as a group, and I think it's been run in a way where there's an administrative system that's helping out all of these stores. But when you look at a store that's operating as a standalone, and both of you go in either really small communities or really big communities, and how would a dealer that's in a very small area benefit from the way that home hardware is structured?
I think it gives them the support, like you said, you're in a group, so you have that support internally that you've put together to service your 5 or 6 stores. where nationally, the smaller store would have head office to
Right.
lean on. So they
Right.
have all the resources and the tools that they need there to help them. Would be the biggest thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So, like, for viewers that might not be, too familiar on the way that we're structured, like, one of the bigger benefits, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably the distribution with, all of the supplier negotiations that are done, having the catalog of products that's available that you can have shipped to your store 1 or 2 times a week. Would you say that's the biggest benefit?
Well, that's definitely a benefit. The size of the company
Yeah.
and the volume that everybody brings in together certainly is an advantage. But I think the biggest advantage is the independent nature.
Yes.
So the
Okay,
owner,
yeah.
the owner from Moncton is from Moncton. The owner
Yeah.
from Fredericton is from Fredericton. They're part of the community, friends, neighbors, family, and the owner for the most part is in the store. And we're the
Yeah.
only company. And I don't know, maybe not entirely retail, but a big part of retail that is still run that way, and not a corporation with one guy making the decisions
Right.
from another city somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. So before, maybe being in these positions, and I'd love to get to know what you've done before this, and maybe how you've gotten to this place. What was the stepping stone before being in your roles? Like, how did you become the person that you are today within the home hardware company?
Go ahead, Eva.
You want me to start? I get to start.
Don't need to give dates. It's
Joke,
just
okay, just an overview. Well, I actually started at store level. So I started
Okay.
working in a small store,
Yeah.
doing everything from paint to receiving to bringing the customer through the cash.
Yeah.
So you did everything. It was a super small store. I think we had 3 employees.
Yeah.
Then just worked my way up to a larger store, and then worked my way into getting a job at corporate.
Okay.
So yeah.
Nice. What about you, Myra?
A long time ago in a different yeah, I came from the paint division. So
Okay.
I actually worked for another paint company, and then I started to work at Home Hardware just close to 30 years at the paint division. I was
Okay.
actually covering the Maritimes, the Atlantic.
Okay,
Well, there's 3 of us covering the country, so
Yeah.
I had the eastern portion. And then I got into the retail operations as a territory manager, like Eva is today.
Yeah.
And then joined the retail director of operations 18 years now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Now we're all counting the years. Like, oh my.
Yeah.
Now
How many
you're going,
fingers,
man,
right?
he's old. Yeah.
So, in terms of the titles that you have, with there's always comes a responsibility to that. In a nutshell, both of you are doing what specifically with our dealers, and how does that approach look on a day-to-day basis?
I'm probably a bit more hands-on than you would be
Yeah.
with
Definitely.
dealers.
Yeah.
So I kind of, look after, I'll say the day-to-day stuff. Like it can vary from store to store what
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah.
Just there to support, help them be successful, help
Yeah.
them onboard onto programs.
Yeah.
Maybe if they're looking to succession plan, help them with that.
Okay.
So if they're looking to sell,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
basically it's a pretty broad umbrella.
Yeah.
Just open it up and just pick from whatever pocket.
I mean, I've had the chance to see how you operate with our store, and essentially what I've grown to understand is that there is a lot of decision making that's taken from the headquarters, that needs to be communicated into the stores, and
Yes.
you essentially act on making sure that happens
Yes.
seamlessly, right?
Yep.
Do you find that every dealer needs to be communicated in the same way? Is there some that it's a one size fits all approach?
Definitely not a one size fits all. No.
Yeah.
Each one's different. Each
Yeah.
one has their own personalities and their own ways of wanting to do things. So
Yeah.
you have to approach each one differently.
Yeah.
What works for one dealer might not work for another. Same as staff. When you're dealing with staff, same
Yeah.
idea, except on a different level.
Yeah.
But yeah, each one you approach each one differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you navigate around that? I mean, you've obviously a big territory, different communities.
Well, you get to know the dealer. Like
Yeah.
you get to know them and understand their personalities and what makes them tick. Things that you can push and things that you can't. So
Yeah.
you get to know that as you get to know them in your territory. So
Right.
I've been in the territory for a while, so
Yeah.
I it does help. Yeah.
Are you originally from the Maritimes?
Am I originally from where?
From the Maritimes?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm
Okay.
originally from Nova Scotia. That's
Okay.
where I started,
Okay.
and then moved to New Brunswick 26 years ago, I
Okay.
think it was.
So you know the Maritime
Yes,
communities
yes.
really well.
And like Mario, I did come from the paint division, so I did all of the Atlantic Canada for a time before I transitioned into just the Maritimes. And then when I took this position to the territory manager, it was New Brunswick PEI.
Okay.
And a year and a half or so ago, they've smallened our territory, so now I just do New Brunswick.
Okay.
So yeah.
So as the communities continue to grow, and I think Home Hardware has essentially been very successful in the rural, like our Capellet store. Like we were just there a week ago doing a barbecue, and it fell on Kazoo, right? So the National Acadian Day, and it really is like a community hub. Like
Yes.
people are going in and out of there like nonstop, and
Yep.
you almost think that like the whole city of Capellet or the village of Capellet has been in the store every
Yeah.
day, right? Is that the most success? Like, is it the only successful way of Home Hardwares to work, or is that an anomaly? Like, what are your thoughts on where it might be the most successful?
Well, again, I think it's that community involvement.
Yeah.
So the store, that's the beauty of the independent nature of the company, is a dealer can make his store his own.
Right.
There's a set of rules
Okay.
that he has to stay in between, but between it's pretty wide, and he can tweak and modify his business to the community's needs.
Okay.
We have stores that have 5,000 square foot toy departments.
Okay.
And we have
Yeah.
stores that have 0 toys.
Okay.
So that's the beauty of our system is,
Yeah.
and a dealer is able to cater to his actual community.
Okay.
So I think that's a big part of the success story.
What are you mentioned rules, like what are some of the, I guess, what's the framework around like starting your store? Like is it very loose? Is it pretty rigid? Like how does that look when someone wants to give it a go?
Yeah, well, that's the challenge. We have over 1,000 stores across the country.
Yeah.
So ideally, it's to find a community where there's a shortfall. There's no hardware store.
Okay.
There's no billing centers. We're not a franchise model,
Okay.
so it's not a big amount of dollars to give to the corporation, like to be
To start
considered.
with, yeah.
The money that you have, you invested in your own business, but it does
Okay.
take some capital because
Okay.
stores now cost a lot more than they did 10 or 20 years ago. So, but yeah, we do have people knocking at our doors sometimes say, I've seen the success that you had during the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
true.
and we are an industry that tends to go through difficult times better than others.
Yeah.
And then we try to find stores for them, either existing stores that are for sale, because that does happen,
Okay.
or just brand new greenfields in a new area,
Okay.
and we can open up a store, but they would need to be 100% owners of that business. We don't
Okay.
open corporate stores at all, ever.
Right. And when like, if someone is looking to differentiate a franchise from the way we operate, a franchise would essentially be like you're buying a kind of program, I guess. Like you're buying something that, okay, here's how to start this. Here's your merchandising. Here's Home Hardware doesn't offer that.
Similar but different,
Okay.
I would say.
Okay.
So the franchise model typically is a lot more rigid,
Okay.
where it's command and control, maybe not the right terminology, but
Okay.
just more rigid, where we the nature of our program is just more flexible,
Okay.
where a dealer can cater to, as I said earlier, to their market. So they can
Yeah.
sell toys if they want toys. They can have an automotive department, bigger than the standard 10 feet of automotive product that we'd have in a typical hardware store.
Mhm.
So I think that truly differentiates us
Yeah.
from the rest. Yeah.
Yeah. How, like, obviously a lot of the times you're listening to the feedback from the dealers itself. how much goes into listening to the customer's feedback on that experience? Because I often, we're myself and Mathieu that runs these podcasts are on our social media platforms, all the time, and we read the comments and we're part of all the direct messages and all that. And we sometimes see, especially in our community, where there's only in Moncton one store that we don't own. And then we're in between in the community of Beaubassin and all that. We've got the Grandic store on one side, we've got the Capital store, and then in the middle there's a Shediac store. So when you have, let's say we have a really great propane sale, the Shediac store doesn't have a propane sale. Well, customers will say like, oh, well, why doesn't Shediac have that? Is that something that you've considered on the headquarters side on how that might affect the community?
Yeah, I think when we talked about advantages, there's advantages and disadvantages to everything, and that's part maybe of the disadvantages. The fact that most stores are independently owned,
yeah.
And one dealer decides to do something in his community, and the neighboring community, you said it perfectly, something happening in one store and not the other, and consumers don't really understand why is one doing it and the other one isn't. But to your first question, we do focus group, we do consumer focus groups, we do listen to consumers, we tweak our advertising on it, and obviously with social media now, if you're not listening to consumers through social media, you're not doing your job.
How does the conversation go with, let's say, and Eva, I don't know if you've even had that conversation with the ownership at Shediac, is like, when those things happen, it's like, how do you maybe support that situation, or how does those conversations go? Because is it like, should you be encouraging the other dealer to adopt the same practices, or should you be more supporting the independence of the dealer? Like, because I'm thinking, just again, the consumer is like, well, Shediac's a little bit closer, why can't I have the $11.99 propane deal there, right?
My approach has always been to have the conversation with them, and for, like, say, your group to have that conversation with him to say, this is what we're going to be offering, and giving him the details and everything, and allowing him to make that decision. Like you said, we're independently owned, so it's up to him whether he jumps on board with the program or not.
Right.
So yeah, usually it's a conversation with the dealer just to say, are you aware that this is happening in your neighboring stores?
Yeah.
And are you comfortable going with the program, or that's usually my approach. It's just to make sure that they're aware that it's happening and being offered, and then they can offer it as well if they choose to.
I'm painting us as like the bad guys doing all these deals.
we encourage dealers from different communities working together across the country, but at the end of the day, even you said it, it's their decision. They're the owners of their business, and they decide. We try to show them the advantages and benefits of working together, and they make that call.
What are some because you were talking about like the flexibility of doing, let's say, a 1,500 square foot toy department, and some have zero. Like, what are some of the out of the box ideas that you've seen be really successful in dealers? Like, we've got a post office here. Like, I think that's great for traffic, because you've got a community of international students that are going to University of Moncton, and they're often using the postal services, so they're obviously introduced to our stores, which is really nice. And I would I would say that they obviously didn't grow up with home hardware commercials and jingles and stuff like that, so it's a great way to get them in, right? Have you seen other kind of crazy out of the box ideas, or it doesn't need to be crazy, but
years ago, I don't have any in my area, but years ago in part of Atlantic Canada, there were stores that had a pharmacy. Some that were attached to grocery stores, those type of things. I have one store that has like a curling selection of stuff. So if you're a curler, you can go and buy your curling supplies. What other unique things do I have? Just giftware, like outside of what you can get through home. And those have been very successful in bringing in the female shopper. So there's a few different ideas out there.
We have stores that do these crazy ideas, these beautiful design centers. We have some stores that do that.
Who would have thought, eh?
Good one, Mario.
But no, we have stores that are very remote in some areas where there's no roads.
Okay.
So the home hardware store is the general store. They sell grocery, they sell gasoline,
Right.
they sell snowmobiles,
Yeah.
ATVs. They're really the general store of the area.
Yeah.
So it's very wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering, and I don't know if it's something that you get in the onboarding when you're joining on the corporate side or the headquarters side. Where was where were the first few stores? Like St. Jacobs is where the first store originated.
Yes.
How did it just really develop like in Ontario and then grow from there? Like,
Yep. So originally, when I said the founder,
Yeah.
Walter J.
Yeah.
Hackford, so obviously we're going back 60 years.
Yeah.
So he went around, and they were all in the southern area, southern Ontario area,
Okay.
is where the company was originally founded, and
Okay.
they grew out from there
yeah.
to this side and into to the west.
With those origins coming from Ontario, do you see a lot of the decision-making process when it comes to, either the merchandise that's coming in or the approach to how the communities are developing and all that? Is it very Ontario-focused, or are you seeing everything across Canada being accounted for?
I'll let you handle that one.
No, you know what? It's a very, very good question. And as I said earlier, I worked for many years in Quebec.
Yep.
And the French in Quebec, how do I say this? The culture is different.
Yeah,
the
100%.
tastes are different.
Yep.
So I think we may have struggled with that years ago. Whereas now with everything, worldwide, access to everything worldwide, I don't think we struggle with that as much. There's always going to be that local flair that nobody knows better than the local people.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can cater to that with
Yeah.
the home hardware system that maybe you can in a corporate model. So very good question.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm thinking because, obviously when you have especially in Ontario, you're seeing the growing population, obviously the demand in housing is changing, is obviously becoming slimmer and slimmer to have the opportunity, but you've also got an international population that's coming in. That changes the way that you want to support dealers in many ways, right? Have you seen a lot of the dealers change their model and looking, because I'm thinking especially in Moncton, is like we're seeing more high-rise apartments popping up. We're seeing a aging demographic, so a lot of people that might have or families that their parents or the parents are downsizing, going into apartments, condos, something that's low maintenance, don't need to cut your lawn, all that stuff there. Are you seeing a lot of dealers adopting that, especially maybe Eva, that's a really good question for you.
There's a few, especially in like urban areas where, there's a lot of those high rises being built.
Yeah.
So the dealers having to change their selection a bit to accommodate that. Like, to go away from maybe more outside power equipment to more small appliances and stuff like that, or pet supplies, like things that people will be looking for if they're living in an apartment, right? So,
yeah, because it's been crazy how it's shifted into, we were always building kind of far and wide from the downtown, and now it's like, oh no, it's kind of changing, and that makes it, it is difficult as a business that's always operated in a specific way to cater to building houses in a specific ways, to specific customers that build houses in a specific way. And now it's like almost like a flick of a switch. It's like, okay, we're building concrete, we're building steel studs, we're building up, we're not building across. It's changed everything, right? So that obviously will have an effect in what you see in the stores, right?
It does, and you need to evolve. So as we review categories on a yearly basis, and so many categories get reviewed every year, you change the mix.
Yeah.
You move out what's no longer selling, that people no longer want, and you move into trendy things that consumers are looking for. You have to.
That's true. Yeah. If someone were to stumble upon this episode here, and we're a little bit motivated by our conversations to start a home hardware of itself, would you like, and I mean, I'm saying be fully honest, but it's going to be difficult because you'd be like, well, I might lose my job if I say this. Would you say starting being like, I want to be an independent dealer, would you say it's a good decision in today's market?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Obviously. No, but truthfully.
No, truthfully
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
I think the model has gone through 60 years. We've never really changed the basic model of the system, and it's truly the company is successful if the dealers are successful. There's no outside parties to satisfy, shareholders to satisfy. So a decision is made. The company has a board of directors, which are home hardware owners from across the country. So the big decisions are made by the board, and they're dealers. They're home hardware dealers. So I have many friends that want a home hardware store. They're just lacking a little bit of money. Because the businesses are worth so much more than they were 10 or 20 years ago, as I said before. So you do need some equity and some capital, especially on a startup.
Yeah.
Like any other startup, it takes some time. But yeah, it would be a very good business decision.
Yeah. What type of Eva, you go across many stores, you're probably on day to day talking to many different owners. What would you say are like the common things that you see over and over and over of, quality owners that I'm sure they're all of great quality, but those things that show up like their values or, both of you have worked within the store and worked your way up, like, is that something that you need to do? Or is it like, we have these types of people that have this type of education, or like, what would you say is like those common traits that really make a successful home hardware dealer?
I don't know. I think passion for what you do is one of the biggest things, because you could have no, I won't say no education, but no retail experience.
Yeah.
But if you've got the passion and you're willing to learn, then you can be very successful.
Yeah.
And I think most of the stores that are very successful aren't scared to give ownership to somebody else. So if they hire someone like you, like you're doing with your podcast, and say, okay, this is your job, you do it, this is your budget or whatever, I think those are the ones that are most successful, that can give ownership to somebody else, but just kind of keep an eye on what's happening, but know that they have it in good hands, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't do it all,
Yeah.
right?
Would you say is pretty?
Yeah, I agree. I think you explained it very well. If I can add something, is I always say we typically have two types of operators. There's an operator that's on the store floor selling product. That's what they love to do, and that's fantastic. And if you're that type of operator, you need to be really well equipped with people who manage your business behind doors,
Right.
the administration portion.
Yeah.
We have other dealers that are tremendous administrators. They're business people with that acumen. Then you better make sure that you have a very good store manager, floor manager, and staff. So, I mean, I guess some can be both.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you're either one or the other. And as Eva said, make sure you get the people around you to make up maybe where you're not your best and do what you're best at.
Yeah. I've seen, like, I think it's something that's really cool about, especially that, we were lucky enough that we have stores in different areas. We have stores that have specific needs for their little area of the community. And we also, as you go to every store, you see that, how important it is to have that paint expert and how important it is to have that plumbing expert. And you often see that those stores do really well because that relationship's formed between the customers that are coming in and that specific person that's there versus maybe I would say, like, and I'm looking from the outsider's perspective of, our competitors, where I think that often their appeal is more like selection, product, big box store, and that's different. And I've always, I've grown to admire in the past 5 years is that home hardwares are really successful because of the relationships they build.
Yes.
And that's the most beautiful part, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm always impressed when you're in a store and the customer comes in and calls the staff member by first name, and
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah.
The staff member knows the customer by first name and they start conversing. To me, that speaks to
Yeah.
exactly your point.
And we had Omal that was with us. You know, he was in the industry for close to, well, more than 50 years.
50 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was that specific person that it was like, you know, people would,
Drawn
if he's
in.
not here today, they'll come tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
We
And
see
I
that.
and I think that is, I'll say one part that maybe is going to be a good challenge per se for the next generation to come is how do you keep those values strong with a generation that maybe you know, working in a hardware store for 25 years might not be something that they will often do. I think we're seeing more and more, you know, the Gen Zs or the younger generations, they have a lot of opportunities from their fingertips or in front of a screen. And the type of education that they might have might steer them away from that hands-on retail experience. Have you seen dealers already facing that challenge of the new staff coming in and having success stories of helping those first employees really be confident in their ability to serve in the way that Home Hardware is best known for?
I don't know. We have some onboarding programs like
Yeah.
internally that we share with stores that they can help educate their staff on, like
Yeah.
the expert zone.
Yeah.
So that's a good starting point for a lot of stores to get their people onto those programs before they even put them to the retail floor.
Yeah.
So it gives them a good background on customer service,
Yeah.
on merchandising, those type of things that they'd probably be dealing with on a daily basis. So I would say,
Yeah.
you know, would be a good start.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that, with that being said, that we'll see more adoption of technology within the stores? Have you seen that being done already with some interactive tools? I know Home Hardware, just the IDT system, is that
Oh,
it?
the interactive tool? Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, what's that all about? Like, how are you kind of bringing in those technologies into the
Yep.
stores?
I think retail in general is going through a quick evolution, like most everything. And we do have plans to have an innovation center where we would test some of these new technologies.
Oh, cool.
And
Okay.
then offer them to dealers who want to take part and bring that new technology into their stores. So
Nice.
because there is a lot that's happening out there in the virtual world,
Yeah.
and AI obviously
Yeah.
is part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So they're all things we're looking at.
Okay. Is there any of those technologies you want to share that have popped up already that you're testing out, or?
Yeah, no, I think like most things, we got caught by a pandemic that slowed
Okay. Fair enough.
that project down a little bit,
Yeah.
but we're looking to revive it and see how we can.
Okay.
I mean, there's things. I visited a store in Montreal where it was a completely cashless. You basically picked something off the shelf and you walked out of the store and you were
No
billed
way.
on your credit card. So when you look at that technology, like, okay, does it work in our stores? Maybe.
Okay.
At least for the hardware side, obviously maybe not but those technologies are very, very expensive, and
Yeah.
like everything else, when it comes out, it's very pricey, and then the price comes down. So
Right.
there's all kinds of neat stuff out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe 6 to 8 months ago, you might be correct me if I'm wrong on that, the live inventory system we've finally put into practice. For the most part, I think it's been very successful. I think that's a really good step in the right
Yes.
direction, because I think a lot of customers now they're doing all their maybe not their shopping per se, because I think hardware stores still have that you kind of have to go in kind of thing, but it's certainly helping the information and educational side of things, where you can look for those reviews, you can look for the variety of products, and then actually see, okay, is it worth driving to the store, right? And those are things that obviously our competitors have
Yes.
had in place and have seen great success. Like I've been in the Canadian Tire, and you're on your phone and you're looking up for something and you press a button and the light's flashing beside the item, right? Which is pretty cool,
Yeah.
right? So, but I think home hardware is obviously taking steps in the right direction for those things there. Now, in terms of what you've seen that's been the, I guess, the better areas of the store for home hardware is, like, let's say someone had never been into a home hardware in their community. Where would you say is the first place to start in terms of, like, if I would want someone to have the best experience possible, and I know you'll say every single section, but I mean, is it
Sure what you're going to say.
Yeah.
paint department?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Everything starts with paint, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Would you say Beauty Tone is up there in the best brands for paint in terms of what's on the market there?
In terms of quality and stuff, yes, it is. Like, we have a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Bruford, Ontario.
Yeah.
So our paint is always tested towards the top in the nation, kind of thing.
Yeah.
We are Canadian owned and owned by Home Hardware, so we don't get product tested to some of the national brands.
Okay.
So you don't always see us in those quality testing, but we do have a very good product. Yes.
What would you like when someone's looking to buy paint? What should they be looking for in terms of what differentiates one from another? Because to me, it's like it's one color. You put it on a wall.
It's wet. It sticks
It's
to the
wet.
wall.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there's a lot of criterias that makes a paint great or not so great.
Yeah.
I think most paint manufacturers will have a high-end brand, and if you compare all of the high-end brands with each, there's going to be a lot of similarity. But I think maybe where we outperform some of the competition, if not most, is the fact that we own and control and manufacture our own paint.
Okay.
We don't have it made by somebody else to a certain spec.
Okay.
We actually make it, and we only make it for our home hardware dealers across the country.
Okay.
I think we have a better control over quality,
Yes.
and it's obviously been a super successful brand for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say that in terms of what's out on the market there, would you say it's probably on the more price point side, or is it more on the higher end side? Like, what type of consumer would benefit the most from the Beauty Tone line? What would you think that's like the target demographic for a paint line like Beauty Tone, or is there many?
It depends on the project that they're working on, what line of paint they're going to get. Like your Signature Series line is kind of the middle of the road one.
Okay.
It'll kind of like a no fail, like, because it is your basics.
Okay.
You got some that are less quality than that, and others that are have better quality and other things that give it. Depending on the project you're doing, you might want to up it to one of the higher ends.
Okay.
But as a general, your Signature line would be, if you did that one, you'd be happy with your results.
Yeah.
I'd say we have a paint for every consumer.
Yeah, we do,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
'Cause we have high end to lower end and everything in between,
Yeah.
rust paint, stain.
Yeah.
So it really depends on your budget and obviously your project.
Yeah.
If you're building $1 million home, you're
Yeah.
probably going to want to get the high
High
end.
end.
Designer
yeah.
series,
And,
yeah.
and if you're into a rental apartment that you're maybe going to be moving in and out in a year or two, then maybe you don't need that high end. We've got that as well.
Okay. Now, obviously, there's a variety of store types. I think that's kind of an interesting concept that some people are not aware of. We're obviously in the design center, which is very unique. There's very little of them in Canada, right? What goes into the, I guess I don't even know if it's the selection process from your guys' end or if it's on the dealer's end to pick the style of store that they want to do, like if they want to do an HHBC or if they want to do an HPC. And what I mean by that, for people that are listening, like home hardware building center, home building center, and then a home hardware. How does that process go?
Yeah, well, depends on the situation, but we can do market studies.
Okay.
We can see what's missing out there in a particular community, and that may determine which banner we decide is best for the market.
Okay.
That would basically be what we would do in a greenfield.
Yeah.
And if it's in a market where there's an existing home hardware store, then maybe we want to see if we can move that HH home hardware store to a home hardware building center.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
again, there's some room in the area to expand.
Right.
Square footage of a building
Okay.
is a factor.
Right.
Typically, you can't have a home hardware building center if you have a 3,000 square foot retail store.
Okay.
You're going to
Yeah.
quickly run out of room.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of different factors. Yeah.
Which one would you say, like, let's say we're talking about in the greater Moncton area, which one, obviously there must be one that we could categorize as the most successful one. Would you say that's the HHBC if you look at a market like Moncton?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, Moncton's pretty much all HHBCs.
Yeah.
Except for Shediac is a HH.
Okay.
And your
Grand
Grand
Dig,
Dig store, it would be an HBC, but
Yeah.
all the rest are HHBCs. And I would say probably 70% of my stores are HHBCs.
Okay. Is that a
Yeah.
trend that's pretty common across Canada?
Yeah, I think it's a trend. But at the same time, I think we have home hardware stores that don't sell lumber that are extremely successful
Right.
Yeah.
in their marketplace. I can think of quite a few.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can too.
And the building supplies industry is very different,
Right.
right? If you've never sold lumber in your lifetime and you think you're going to become a lumber retailer expert overnight, not so much. It is truly, not to say that it can't be done. Many dealers have done it,
Okay.
but there are some markets where we don't. The building supply portion is maybe well covered by a competitor.
Okay.
Where maybe there's lack of a good hardware store, and our
you kind of
stores-
position yourself
and our
that way,
stores do
right?
really, really well with better margins.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, a lot of consideration is made prior to even opening a type of store.
Yes.
Based on what's currently there, right?
Yep.
There is an interesting situation happening in Moncton, and I'd love to know both of your thoughts about it. Is Rona opening up their store? What are your thoughts on that happening?
Well, yeah, we typically like to talk about our company, not our
The
competitors.
competition.
Listen, Rona is a very good competitor.
Yep.
They went through a lot of changes over the last few years with the ownership structure there, and I think they've come out to the other side of that, and their ownership group wants them to succeed, and that's why they're there. So we see them doing some things different things across the country. So I think in the end, competition is good, and Rona continues to be, always has been, a very good competitor. We were partners, part of the same buying group. I'm going to age myself now, but about 20 years ago,
Yeah,
I'm going to say.
yeah, I think it was about that long
and
ago.
we both went our mutual separate ways that way, and no, we compete very well against
Yeah.
Rona and others across the country.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think similar to what he said, like,
Yeah.
competition's always good. It keeps you
Yeah.
on your toes, keeps you, aware of what's going on in your marketplace.
Yeah.
You
got to live with it, right? It's not our decision to take.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
nope, that's right.
We always like to tell our dealers, focus on your business first.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always be aware that there's competition out there,
Yeah.
but focus on your business and you'll be successful.
Yeah. Has I always come back to Moncton because I think Moncton is obviously because we're here, but has the influence of those, the Home Depots, the Ronas, those things there, and the way they operate, their size of the store, or the way they're designed and stuff like that, has that ever been something that has influenced some of the decision making that might go into how the HHBC stores might look?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say many years ago when Home Depot came into Canada, it changed the landscape.
Yeah.
And if you didn't look at least at your business model when the major competitor like that comes into town, you didn't do your job. I think we fared very well against the larger. And when I said originally the company was developed
Yeah.
because of the influx of the big American companies coming in. So, 40, 50 years down the road, it's the same concept. And I think, again, our business model makes that we are successful against these other players.
And we're dominant in the smaller markets
Yeah.
where they are more in the bigger markets. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, it- do is the brand starting to look at more opportunities within those bigger markets, though, like the Toronto areas, the Montreal's, all those stuff? Because it is very different having a store that's in, like I said, Capital A, where you got people
Yeah.
going in and out, versus one where it's like, I think of the visits I might have had in a place like Montreal, where it's like I wouldn't imagine going into a home hardware store the same way that I do in the one at Elwood, right?
You'd be surprised, though.
Yeah.
It does happen, but you're right. In the urban centers, it's
Yeah.
it's different. Listen, we have a target list. We have areas that we're not right now that we would
Okay.
like to be in.
Okay.
I guess our challenge is we don't open corporate stores.
Right.
So we need an operator. We need somebody that knocks
Right,
at the door,
right.
or we find somebody. We do that sometimes. But yeah, we have a list of markets across the country that we would want to be in that we're not currently in. Some of them are urban.
Okay. And I guess on the other side, in New Brunswick, I would say it's a trend, but you're seeing a lot of these, like the Bathurst, the Campbelltons, those areas maybe up north where a lot of migration's kind of happening into your urban centers like Moncton. How's the support gone towards dealers like that in those areas where they might start to see some of that traffic dwindle, or less houses being built, or how do those
I think
go?
kind of
Yeah.
the same as Moncton, where
Yeah.
some people are migrating here. You have people that maybe are on the outskirts of those communities that are migrating closer to those communities too.
Okay.
Same idea. They
Yeah.
just maybe don't choose to go to Moncton or whatever, or
Yeah.
a larger center. I think they have to look at what they're carrying and what they're offering,
Right.
and cater to, again, what's in their community and what's happening in their community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is still construction and housing construction, but a lot of things are transitioning more to apartment buildings now, right? So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that going on across the province. So,
Cool. In terms of, we're as dealers, it's always the questions, and some of them are going to be answered in next couple of weeks when we go to our homecoming. Is what are things that you're really excited about in the next couple of years, or in the next 6 to 12 months or whatnot, that's coming from Home Hardware?
Yeah, well, I think you said it. The next big event is Homecoming,
Yeah.
and for people who don't know what that is, it's basically our annual buying show that most of our dealers come to in Toronto, and they buy products for in 2 seasons from now. So for
Yeah.
spring and summer is the buying event. So there's always our suppliers come in with new products, new ideas, new concepts. So that's always very exciting. I remember last year, I think one of the highlights was that lawn tractor
yes.
that everybody wanted to try. They actually had a course.
Right,
that
yeah,
they
yeah.
could, you
I
remember
remember
that? So they always come up with these really neat ideas. So
Yeah.
I think that's obviously top of mind right now, because it's taking up a lot of resources, because they're huge undertakings to get those shows up and running and be successful.
Yeah. Anything you're excited for that's coming up?
I don't know. It's always exciting to get to see the dealers from across Canada, ones that that you don't get to see all the time, and to get the dealers from your territory up to a large event like that to see what's new and exciting for them to bring in that maybe they're missing opportunities on. So
It's pretty cool. My first experience was 2 years ago, and it's you don't understand the sheer size of the network of
Yes.
home hardware stores there is until you go there, and you look how many people are in the room and how big the room is, and you're like, and this is not everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the crazy part, right?
Yeah.
And also it's really interesting if you take the time to talk to people on how different they are, but how common the stories are, the
Yes.
challenges are, and I think that's really worth celebrating, and it's also a really great part of the experience of going there. And it's like, you can fast track your success by just having those conversations, and you all can also get that reassurance, being like, oh shit, okay, I'm not the only one that's struggling with that. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. One question I think a lot of, I guess, if this is a dealer or anyone from Home Hardware looking, is like, which one did you prefer, the St. Jacobs one or the one that they're currently doing right now?
That's the toughest
You
question.
had to ask that question.
I guess it really depends who you ask.
Yeah.
Some dealers love it. Some dealers really love the St. Jacobs experience.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was more in the country, obviously in the original Home Hardware store town in St. Jacobs. So,
Yeah.
but life evolves, and we needed to. We got a lot bigger quicker with the pandemic, and we basically outgrew the facilities in St. Jacobs. So it just was no longer an option to empty out part of a warehouse when the warehouses were full of product. So we had to evolve, and it's in Toronto. Who knows? It may be in Moncton one day, or in Halifax, or in Edmonton. I don't know. But interestingly enough, some dealers absolutely love coming to Toronto, and some dealers
don't.
not so much.
Right. Yeah.
And that's normal.
Yeah.
Depends on what part of rural Canada you're from.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would see that happen.
Yeah.
I did, most of the people in our group have had the chance of doing both, and you do hear differing opinions from both, and I think the St. Jacobs one probably had its charm and its uniqueness.
Yeah.
And it's also like the stories that I've heard from our side is the community that you're going in, right? Because it's very Amish. There's a lot of a big Amish community, which is kind of cool. You're almost going back in time,
And they used to set up their little vendor markets outside the door to sell their wares and
One
stuff.
correction.
Oh,
Mennonite.
Mennonite.
Sorry.
Yes.
That's
Similar
true.
but different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably a part where you.
You don't see that in downtown Toronto.
That's it. Yeah.
No horse and buggies.
No, the horse and
No,
buggies,
no.
no.
I always try to finish off these podcasts with kind of a question. I guess I'll try to direct it more in a way that is relevant to maybe the home hardware dealer that's listening, or the hopefully future home hardware dealer is. If you have advice to give to that person that is currently watching, or that might be looking to start, what piece of advice would you give them to hopefully have a successful career with, or successful ownership with home hardware?
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is we have a lot of second, third, fourth generation owners.
Yeah.
And some of these younger people grew up. They basically started working in their dad's store when they were 6 years old, and on Saturdays. And if I had one piece of advice, is do it. If you're looking at ownership, do it sooner than later.
Right.
Because most people I've spoken to in my career have said, wish I would have done that 10 years earlier in almost anything. So do it sooner than later.
Yeah. I think, kind of along that same line. I think some kids are a little more nervous about doing it because they looked at mom and dad working hard, longer hours. And I don't think you necessarily have to put in those hours now that you used to have to put in to be successful. Technology has helped alleviate that, and hiring the right people, like we talked about earlier, and giving them the ownership of being able to do some of that stuff has helped a lot of younger dealers get into a store and be successful, and not have to give up their home life or their life with their children or whatever. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. And it's great that you say that, because I think that earlier you had mentioned that too, is that there's a couple of different styles of owners that do really well, and there's some that are more in the back end that have got great supporting staff, and you got some that are on the floor doing it, and both styles can be really
Yeah,
successful.
they can be.
And I think that to your point with the longer hours and all that, yeah, you can surely do that and
Yes.
be successful, but it's not the be all end all to,
No.
to having a successful business. Especially if you have that eagerness to be an entrepreneur and you are maybe fearful of those long, laborious hours. It definitely requires hard work and
Yes, it
dedication
does.
and effort.
No, most definitely.
But I don't think that it's as crazy as some of those crazy stories might sound.
Yeah,
So.
exactly.
Well, it was great, great chatting with both of you and getting to learn more about, on the corporate side. And I think some of the stuff that maybe can be there could be some confusion with the style that we operate.
Yeah.
But I think all three of us are confident in what, how everything is run in a sense. And there's obviously pros and cons to anything, but I think it's a good place to be, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes,
I
it
agree.
is.
There you go. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.